What's up, 444? We are back for week 7 DFS MVP. We're going to be going game by game through the Sunday main slate, which will be 10 games on DraftKings, 11 games on FanDuel, because they're including that Sunday night football game as well. As you may have noticed, no Davis Maddock with us today. Had to bow out last minute. Davis will be back next week. This week, it is just going to be me and Pat Corain. Pat, how are you doing today?
Doing good. How you doing now?
Can't complain. How'd you feel about the Thursday night football game? The Javonte Williams breakout, no Alvin Kamara, can't hurt us this week anymore. How do you feel about it?
I mean, the Javonte stuff was nice. We did the Shipcast watch along, and we've got our underdog pick'ems going, and all came down to a Devon Vele catch, which then got called back.
Two of them got called back. I also had the over. I had the over on yardage for Vele.
Before the second one, Pete said, "I know it's going to happen. We're going to get the exact yardage we need, which was 13 yards, and it's going to get called back on a penalty," which is then exactly what happened. So He did call that. We didn't, unfortunately, though, that was not on the pick'em. But yeah, we ended up not winning that pick'em because of those two holding penalties. So that was pretty tilting because we, like my big read was like, I love the Bo Nix rushing stuff in that matchup.
Yep.
And that hit like very quickly, and all the other, a lot of the other stuff we had was quite good. But yeah, so but overall, a little bit more of a fun game, I guess, than we thought we might get.
True. I feel like with that pick'em stuff, like I know that all of the like sharp bettors that I know mostly bet a lot of unders. Like typically you look at the lines and it's like, oh, the unders, it's better to bet the under on these things. And yet when I do like pick six for these single games, I always find myself taking so many overs. And that was what I did last night as well. I had the over on Vele. So I got 4 out of 6 on pick six, had the over on Vele, like 31.5 receiving yards, something like that. So he had, again, multiple receptions that long that got called back, but also had over 3.5 receptions for Cortland Sutton, which felt like it was just a gimme to me. 3.5 receptions. Those, of course, they target him so much. Did not work out for me. So yeah, same page. It was painful. That was just pick six, whatever.
Yep.
All right, we are gonna go game by game here again, and gonna follow the games in my article. So we're gonna go down the list as listed in my article. So if you want to follow along, I posted that into YouTube chat. Check that out if you want to follow along. But we're going to start here with the Tennessee Titans at the Buffalo Bills. The Titans have an implied team total of 15.75. That is the worst of the entire week, 30th out of 30 teams. Bills implied team total 25.25. That is the 5th best out of 30 teams. I didn't find a lot that I love in this game, Pat. Did you? Are there players that you like in this Titans Bills game?
This is, let's see. Titans Bills there's not a ton that I love in this game. I think Pollard is okay, 6,300. Yep. I think, he's been running well. And when you look at the context of some of his rushing numbers, which are solid, it's like, this is not a passing game you want to be tied to. And yet, he's performing pretty well. So from that perspective, he's kind of overcoming his situation, but he's going to have to do that again. I don't love Will Levis here necessarily. I'm not really buying the squeaky wheel Calvin Ridley stuff. Like we just did this last week, and They actually got him involved, and it wasn't early enough for his liking, but they did get him some targets. He's not doing much with the targets, 0.98 yards per route run. Don't love that. And his open score, he's 18th percentile there. So not much interest there. Hopkins would be honestly, I'd be more interested in him, but I'm not really that interested in him. So I think it's kind of like Pollard is a very playable running back option.
Yeah, I think Pollard might even be, I haven't done my cash game stuff yet, but I think he might end up being a cash game type option. Like he projects really well point per dollar. It is kind of a run funnel defense for the Bills. So there are reasons to like Pollard, but I don't know. I just don't love the game environment in general. Again, the lowest implied team total on the entire slate for the Titans, or the entire week for the Titans. No Tyjae Spears, so that obviously helps with Pollard. There are a lot of things going for Pollard. So I think that he is, a strong enough option. On the Bills, I don't know. I thought, because they have the 5th highest implied team total on the entire slate. So I thought I should try to find something that I like here. But I think, James Cook is going to come back, but not necessarily in a bell cow role. It wouldn't be surprising to me if he's kind of splitting with Ray Davis. So they're both a little bit too expensive for the split. I think Amari Cooper may be interesting. I don't know. I didn't really find anything that I liked on the Bills side, salary included. Do you like anything better than I do?
Not really, but I guess I would just note I like Dalton Kincaid more than the market. I think at this
Okay.
point, he has been out there running a lot of routes. Like the route participation on the season is only 69%, which is not very good. And it's like, and we're seeing, um, more of a split role in the actual targets than we'd like. But um, he is still got, he's got a 21% target share, which is 92nd percentile among tight ends, 23% targets per out run, which is 90th percentile, is pretty good. And he's run 79% and 80% of routes over the last 2 weeks. You had that blowout 3 weeks ago, and then he was checked for a concussion the week before that. That's why his route participation isn't where we want it to be. It's not actually because it's like a true split role. So, I'm not worried about not stealing routes. Basically, I am worried a
Yeah.
little bit about not being able to predict where the targets go. But I mean, Kincaid's he's drawing targets at a pretty good rate, and he's running a lot of routes, and he's tied to Josh Allen. So kind of the zoomed out view here on Kincaid is that like he's still in a pretty good spot. I don't think he's like an elite player. He's got 1.67 yards per route run, but like Josh Allen's TJ Hawkinson, is
Yeah.
kind of maybe what we're looking at. It was supposed to be Kelsey. He's not going to be Kelsey, but maybe he's Hawk. And if they throw a little bit more with Cooper and stuff, that's probably like more of a long-term thing. I'm not at 5,000. I'm not like dying to play Kincaid this week, but I would just note that I'm still fairly bullish on Kincaid.
Yeah, I think I'm on the same page as you. I thought about writing him up because I feel the same way. Like I think things kind of look okay for Kincaid as long as Amari Cooper doesn't screw things up for him. Agreed. I think he looks like better than he looked to me a few weeks ago, where it looked like they were phasing him out. But all signs point to he's going to continue to see a lot of usage. I thought about writing him up at 5,000, just decided against it. He also had the Q tag yesterday, so it was just a lot of things. I was like, I don't really feel like I need to force this right up. There are also a lot of options that I really like who are kind of in the higher price range, and then a few lower. So I didn't feel like I needed to add him. But I think that's a good call out. He is at least playable at 5,000 on DraftKings. I think that's all I have on this game. Do you have anything else?
Nope.
All right, let's move on to the Detroit Lions at Minnesota Vikings. The Lions have an implied team total of 24.75. That is the 8th best on the week. Vikings 26.25, 4th best on the week. So two of the higher implied team totals on the entire slate. Obviously some better plays here. Who do you like in this game?
One guy that I'm probably gonna like bully the projections on a little bit is Jameson Williams. I think he's interesting this week, in part because they're using Jameson Williams a lot more against the blitz than they did last year. Last year, he had a 17% targets per out run against the blitz with Amon-Ra St. Brown at 31%. But very clearly, like the reliable option that Goff's going to go to in those situations. This year, they're both at 23% targets per out run, and Williams has a 4.60 yards per out run against the blitz with 2 touchdowns. I take that more as the Lions feeling good about what the role they have for Williams rather than he's, incredible against the blitz. But I think he is really fast. Like he is, going to punish you potentially if you end up with him in, single coverage because of the blitz. So I like him a little bit more than I think he's going to be projected. And I think he's very playable at 6,000. He's not like a smash or anything, but I do like him as a interesting way to kind of attack this game environment. Justin Jefferson obviously set up very, very nicely here. Potentially, a spot where the Vikings are going to have to pass more than they have. They've only passed 61% of the time. It's their highest pass rate all season. I actually don't know if the Lions can push them here. I don't really love this matchup for Goff, but they certainly could. I mean, that's the way Vegas has this projected. This is a high total game. So from that perspective, I think you definitely want to be considering Jefferson, maybe a little cooler on Amon-Ra than the Fields due to the Jameson stuff I just mentioned. I think Addison's playable. Aaron Jones is very playable if he's healthy enough. It's kind of we'll have to keep an eye on the reports there. But yeah, I'm more interested in like the Darnold Jefferson side of this than playing it through the Goff Amon-Ra side.
So if you have concerns about the game, about the Lions being able to keep up, is this a game that you would be more inclined, at least in a large field GPP, to do a full game stack, like have that bring back so that because it's you're kind of hoping for the entire game to go off. So maybe if you have concerns about the Lions not being able to keep up with the Vikings, then maybe it'd be a better idea to play like a Darnold Jefferson stack. If you have a bring back from the Lions, maybe Jameson Williams. Are you factoring that in at all? Like well, it's going to go better if the Lions can keep up. So then maybe I do want a Lions piece.
I think Jameson Williams is a very interesting bring back for sure. I don't know that you need to force a bring back though, because Amon-Ra is 8,300. So like he can like soak up a fair amount of like come from behind volume before you're like, I had to have him. And by the same token, like Jahmyr Gibbs, 6,900, I think he's definitely playable. I'm kind of intrigued by him here, but if he doesn't get in the end zone, even if he's like racking up catches at the end, you might be okay without the bring back. So I think bring backs are in play for sure.
Yeah. Just looking at projections, I think Darnold, one of the better point per dollar quarterbacks on the slate on DraftKings at 6,200. Jefferson had one of maybe the highest projection on the slate, at least one of the highest projections on the slate. So yeah, I think that Viking stack looks really good. Jordan Addison looked like a pretty solid point per dollar play at 5,600 on DraftKings. Second in route participation and target share. He's only played 3 games, but in the games that he's played, 19% target share, so pretty solid there. Aaron Jones, it's tough. Like I want to play Aaron Jones in general, but then like the multiple injuries, it kind of scares me. And then of course playing the Lions run defense, typically very good. I know Kenneth Walker did really well against them, but like generally a pretty good run defense. Some interest in Aaron Jones, and then if Aaron Jones is out, do you think you would have interest in like a Ty Chandler?
I mean, he has not been efficient this year.
No.
At all. And he's 5,600. So it's not like I was like looking for him there. I was like, I hope he's 4,900.
I know.
Tell me he's 4,900. At 5,600, I don't know that I'm like that interested, frankly. The thing about the Lions, right? The defense, all the numbers aren't going to reflect the fact that they lost Aiden Hutchinson for the year.
Yep.
Hutchinson is good as a run defender, but he wasn't like amazing. He's amazing as a pass rusher. He's got the highest pass rush win rate of every defensive player in the NFL this year, per ESPN, and that's where I think he's going to be a huge loss. The Lions' run defense is still going to be pretty good without him, I think. So I'm not necessarily like running to play Chandler if Jones is out, although I think he would get a fair amount of volume. But they did just trade for Cam Akers too, so.
Yeah.
Like, are we like 100% sure it's all Chandler? Because if it's like a split role with the efficiency Chandler's shown this year, if it's a split role with Akers, like I'm just not feeling good about that at that price. For me, like Addison is kind of the more interesting, secondary piece here. Probably even if Jones is out, just because like the Lions have been good at defending the deep middle of the field, which is where Addison has really feasted this year. But again, they don't have Hutchinson, and we have more time to throw potentially with Darnold. Like maybe they punish them a little bit more downfield with both Jefferson and Addison. So I could see a double stack paying off here. My primary read on this game is that Goff struggles and that the Lions offense struggles a bit, and that like maybe the Vikings don't need to go like full 4 quarters. In which case, maybe Chandler does get there, but again, the price and the role, I don't love that, but it makes me a little bit nervous about like a double stack here. But I could also see like them maybe potentially through Jameson Williams surprising a little bit here, and this being a really fun game. And I don't want to ignore the fact that it's got a really nice total on both sides. Both teams have good implied team totals. I mean,
yeah, very, very high implied team totals. I think it wasn't as juicy. Like I didn't love as much of the game as I thought I would, just based on the team totals. But I'm with you on Jameson Williams being pretty interesting at lower ownership. I think that is a good spot to mess with the projection, just kind of fudge it a little bit to make sure you get some Jameson Williams. Jefferson Darnold do look really good to me. I think they just a really strong stack. So I think.
Do you have any
largely? Go ahead.
Do you have like any kind of philosophical stuff on tweaking projections? Because it does strike me that like Jameson is like one of the guys where it's like makes more sense to tweak if you have a
Because he's
feel
boom
for it?
bust.
Because it's boom
Yeah.
bust. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, how do you project that?
So I have no issue tweaking projections. It's always been kind of how I play. Like back, before I was doing content, when I had all the time in the world, I would spend hours on Sunday morning adjusting projections, just like little by like 1/10 of a fantasy point or 2/10 of a fantasy point at a time, just like the most minor tweaks to, and then run the optimizer, see what I get, and then adjust. Like, oh, I'm happy with this kind of exposure. So I've always been one to adjust quite a bit, but I do it really incrementally because I don't want to get too far away from the projections. Like the projections are good. They're going to be better than I would be just like randomly assigning numbers to players. So I don't really want to completely discard projections when I'm doing it, but I do spend a lot of time just like incrementally making changes so that I get closer to exposure levels that I like. But I agree with you. Like I feel pretty good about my ability to do it in a way that makes sense. I would say, like, if you are more hesitant, if you don't want to fudge the projections as much, I do think, like, yeah, those boom bust players that just like the medium projection is not going to reflect their true range of outcomes. I think those are the better players to adjust. So I think Jameson Williams to me would be the type of player that it makes more sense. Maybe Trey Tucker falls into that bucket.
Sure. Yeah.
Darnell Mooney. I'm trying to think of who would fall into
Honestly,
the bucket.
Moon is getting targeted too much. I don't know if
True.
he counts
Yeah.
anymore.
Good point. Yeah, but we have No, I think that makes sense. Is that kind of your approach? Is just like don't mess with it unless they're boom bust.
I'm messing with it if there's more. If I have a read, there's certain guys where I'm just like, all right, I'm gonna, and I'll do stuff where I'll adjust, guys project. Like last week, I adjusted Derrick Henry's projection, and then I had other stuff where I didn't adjust his projection. I adjusted Zay Flowers' projection. So I'll kind of play it both ways and see like what I'm getting in terms of lineups with. Yeah, I'll experiment with it in that kind of way. But yeah, I guess I'm not. I feel kind of comfortable being like, I think Williams gets like maybe an extra target or two than the market does.
I
like
probably
one
IKB
target
it
more than the
too
market.
much. Yeah. No, I think that, I mean, it's whatever. We're trying to have fun, right? We're trying to make money. We're also just trying to like play the plays that we want to play. So IKB it a ton with my projections. So maybe don't do as I do in messing with everything. Would be my advice to people. But yeah, no, I have no issue. Just like making small adjustments until you get to some. Like I'm not trying to like, all right, I'm gonna bump Jameson Williams 5 fantasy points and great, now I have 74%. That's cool. I don't know. I don't want to do stuff like that, but yeah, just like little IKB projection adjustments. Yeah, I think that I have no issue with it. Anything else on Vikings Lions?
Not really. Do you have a read on Hawkinson if he's going to play?
I thought it was announced today that. Oh no, I forget maybe it was questionable today. I had assumed that he was not playing this week. That would affect Addison also if he does end up playing. Not really. I don't think I would be really wanting to play Hawkinson this week, even if he's active. I guess he has the revenge game narrative against the Lions.
That's true.
Let's see. What is the latest on?
He's questionable per Roto World.
He is still okay.
Yeah.
I'm still guessing he's not playing this week. It feels like it would be too early. If he ends up playing, I don't know what is even the price tag on Hawk. Let's see. I had not given it any thought because as I was writing it up, I was like, yeah, he's going to be out. Obviously, nothing changes there. But the Q tag is obviously promising.
Yeah.
I'm trying to load my Opto here, and it's taking a minute for some reason. All right, here we go. All right, where's Hawkinson?
I'm not interested in Johnny Munn if he doesn't play. I'll say that. And I'm not really interested in Sam Laporta here. So it'd have to be a cheap Hawk.
Yeah, I guess if Hawkinson is active, I would think about it at least just to say like he's probably not going to get any ownership in his first week back. Not a bad spot against the Lions. So yeah, it's an interesting call out. How are the Lions? Let's see. They are, I guess they're ranked 6th in terms of schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed to tight ends. But again, I think always dealing with small sample sizes there, particularly with tight ends. It's just kind of like it's schedule adjusted, so it does try to take into account the teams that you faced, but it's still just a small sample size thing. I don't know. I don't want to read too much into it with tight ends being just like one couple, not a ton of volume anyway. But So far, not the best matchup. Yeah, I think it's a spot to keep an eye on, I guess. I don't want to make any call right away because probably want to like also hear more about like what his usage is going to look like. Is he going to be limited if he does play? But it's an interesting
I think it's
thought.
more about Addison. It's more about Addison.
Yeah, agree with that. Yeah, the projection on Addison will definitely go down if Hawkinson comes in. Suddenly won't be a great point per dollar play. Yeah, that's a good note. Um, all right. Philadelphia Eagles at New York Giants. Eagles have an implied team total of 23.5. That's tied for 12th of the week. Giants implied team total of 20. That is tied for 22nd of the week. Pretty interesting game. We have, of course, Saquon returning to New York. So you got that narrative going for you. Giants defense, just looking at schedule adjusted stuff, I think of the Giants as being just a really bad defense. In terms of schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed, they're actually like pretty middling. So it doesn't stand out as a phenomenal matchup for the Eagles. That sort of surprised me reading that. I don't know. They're pretty interesting game to me. Who do you like here?
Yeah, the Giants, they have a pretty decent pass rush by the numbers. So they're not terrible defense, but they're not great. 20th in EPL upper dropback, 21st in dropback success rate. One thing that was kind of interesting is that Jalen Hurts last week was like sneaky efficient. He was up to 86th percentile in EPA per play and 97th percentile in success rate. We didn't really feel that because the Eagles went super run heavy. They had a minus 12% pass rate over expected, and we're at minus 19% on first down, and that led to only 47 rushing yards from Saquon Barkley. So it's just it's a type of it's a good way to hide an efficient quarterback performance. You run ineffectively a bunch. But AJ Brown's back, Devontae Smith's back, and I kind of like Hurts AJ Brown is a stack this week. I think that's playable. And then Daniel Jones, Malik Neighbors on the other side is also pretty interesting to me. Neighbors is just like flashing true superstar numbers. I mean, you can talk about like all the targets they're feeding him, and they are feeding him targets. He's got the highest target share in the league, and 39%, 30% first read target rate. Like this is truly day ball, giving him. But he's also got the highest open score in the league. So he's kind of doing his part. Like this should be happening. This is like good scheming by the Giants. So I'm kind of into that. And then I think Grant Calcaterra is at least, I wish he was like maybe a little cheaper, 3,200, not like the bare minimum, but I think he's in play as a punt, especially like if you are going to do the Hurts AJ Brown thing, you're immediately like, oh, and I'm out of money. So he helps you keep it cheap at tight end at least.
Yeah, it doesn't like stand out as like the best point per dollar play at tight end, but yeah, I'm with you. I think that Calcaterra definitely in play. I like the call out of Hurts with AJ Brown. I think that is my favorite way to stack if I'm going to do a Hurts stack, and it's not like extremely expensive. It's it's not cheap, but Jalen Hurts just 7,300 on DraftKings, so pretty reasonable there. AJ Brown is 8,000, so a little bit expensive. You could consider Devonta Smith also, I think is always kind of in play. But yeah, Malik Neighbors, I mean, there was a period during the summer where there were rumors, at least, that he was being considered to be drafted ahead of Marvin Harrison Jr. There were some teams that liked him better than Marvin Harrison Jr., and you can see why now. Like just seems to be a mega talent. I also, as I recall, there was a quote like a few weeks into the season, Dable was asked like, are you okay with how much Malik Neighbors is being targeted? Like they were kind of, it felt like it was trying to set him up to say no, like it's clearly too much. We got to spread it out more. And he was like, yeah, I'm good with it. Just like, yeah, why would we not target this guy? And yeah, they just continue to, as you said, highest target share in the NFL. No reason to think that is going away. So yeah, I think Neighbors looks great. I think Daniel Jones is the best point per dollar quarterback on the slate. Does a little bit of running. Nice matchup here, only 5,400. So I think that stack makes a ton of sense. Those are the only two that I listed from New York. I know Wan'Dale Robinson has had his weeks. I don't know. I'm not going there. What about Saquon? So Saquon 8,200 again, returning to New York. I'm not typically one to like really buy into narratives, but returning to New York, maybe it's already a decent enough matchup for Saquon. You think he's playable at 8,200? The price tag is pretty high there.
The price tag is pretty high. I kind of doubt I play him this week, but I don't fault anyone for going there. In the narrative, the narrative's kind of interesting. And Sirianni's like yelling at fans on the sidelines. Like he seems like
Right.
the type of dude who might
Yeah.
be like, we gotta feed Saquon and get this revenge game for him. Even with the last 2 weeks, he's averaging 85 scrimmage yards, 0 touchdowns. That was after the first 3 weeks. He's averaging 135 scrimmage yards and 1.7 touchdowns per game. But so even with him cooling off, he's still running back 4 in rush yards over expected per attempt. He's got a really solid 41% success rate. He's running back 6 in breakaway yards per game. So, he's still been really strong, even if it hasn't been as exciting as it was to start the season. The receiving role is definitely not great. He's running back 44 with the 0.79 yards per route run. Only targeted on 14% of his routes. 11% target share is not like bad, but that part of it is definitely disappointing, or at least not in line with the price tag here. But yeah, I mean, you're betting that he can rip off some long runs, and he's definitely he's got plenty of juice left. So I do think he's in play at 8,200.
Yeah, agreed. That's kind of how I see it with Saquon. Also, 91 of 99 running back carries for the Eagles so far this year. They have RIP to all my Will Shipley best ball shares, all my Kenneth Gainwell in the pre-draft stuff, not looking that great. And of course, RIP to all my fading of Saquon Barkley. How do you feel about the process of? I assume that you were kind of lower on Saquon Barkley also in best ball.
Yeah. No, he's a huge fade for me.
Yeah,
The Barkley one, there's ones like the Kamara one, and it's funny because he just had this horrible game last night. But the Kamara one really bugs me as a process one because he was so cheap, and I actually wasn't that into Kendra Miller because of all the coach speak stuff. I was like, Dennis Allen clearly hates this guy and all that. But I was like, I'm not into Jamal Williams, I'm not into Kendra Miller, so who will it be? And I was like, the obvious answer is Kamara, and you don't have to pay that much. So even if he falls off, even if he only gets some a few really good games, it's probably worth it. That one definitely bugs me. The Barkley one, if you're in on Barkley, you're going to hate this take. But it does feel to me ahead of the season, it felt like this very, very narrow path where you need this guy who hasn't been actually very efficient in a while, has had some serious injuries throughout his career, really only had one really, really strong season. It was way back in his rookie year, 2018. So you need him to get back to that level of efficiency as a runner. And that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
And you also need him to you really need him to do that because he's not going to be that involved as a receiver. And you also need him to be scoring touchdowns at a high rate on a team where we know that, Jalen Hurts is going to be running an effective tush push. And it's well, the tush push isn't as effective. He isn't involved as a receiver really. And that doesn't matter because, when he is involved as a receiver, it's always for a touchdown.
Right.
And then he's ripping off long runs and he looks as good as he ever has. So I don't know, man. It's hard to predict everything correctly. I'll eat that. I'll eat that L, and I'll probably, if you give me a similar setup, I'm going to bet against it again.
I'm on the same page as you. So I feel like some people have taken the L there, took the L after week 1. We had people on Twitter being like, yeah, I was just wrong about Barkley, or maybe after week 2. I don't know what it was. But I was kind of I still feel like it was the right process play to not just jam this aging running back who's been inefficient going to an offense with a quarterback who's not going to target him a ton, quarterback who might take the goal line. I don't know. I feel like it was
I should have been more aggressive.
Process fade.
When he would fall to the third sometimes, and I should have been, because there were sites on FFPC he was going in the late first and whatnot. So I think if I was gonna give myself a hard time, maybe correctly a hard time, I would say you should have played the mark. You should have been more aggressive in spots where you could get him at a far cheaper price than most people were paying, and I wasn't. So that would be a
third round,
the process error there.
Yeah. All right. I know not everybody here wants to talk about best ball. I was curious to hear your take because I'm I don't feel like it was that bad of a process play to fade it. I know a lot of people have conceded the point. I'm yeah, maybe probably should have a little bit more than I have, but
I mean, I wish I had. Barkley was a hit, and it's saying he shouldn't have been a hit is meaningless. But it's more what am I going to do if there's a similar setup to this? I'm going to bet against it most likely. Maybe I'll try to be a little bit more price sensitive or whatnot, and try scoop the discount where I can get it. But I'll probably bet against it.
And again, 16 targets through 5 games. It's not like he's being involved in the passing game. A lot of the things that we assumed were going to be the case have been the case so far this year. Just Yeah, it's been frustrating.
He's
That
been
he's
really
been
good.
getting
Like
this.
that's
He's been really good.
he's been really good, and that's the thing. Like you know, I was skeptical that he would be this good. Is really what it was. I was just very skeptical he would be this good. He's been really good. So if you're been riding Barkley being way better than I thought he was, you can do it again this week. I mean,
Yeah.
he could easily have another really strong game here.
Yeah, great spot to continue riding the Barkley train. Anything else on this Giants Eagles game?
No, I agree with you about the Wandale and Slayton stuff. Like, I think this offense is built to go through Neighbors. Neighbors back out there. It's going to go through him again. I think like a lot of Slayton stuff was him kind of like being Neighbors.
Yep.
And yeah, I think Wandale could be kind of PPR scammy if you need him in redraft and stuff, but I don't have much interest in him in DFS.
I liked Wandale a lot back when he was like 4,400. Like I was like, yeah, I can just imagine he scores a touchdown with the PPR stuff. But now he's expensive enough that it's like, man, it would be an outlier for him to really hurt you if you fade him. So I think I'm probably out this week.
Neighbors at 7,500 does feel cheap, doesn't it?
I know that's the bizarre thing. It's I assume it's the most expensive he's been this year too.
Yeah,
like,
but
this has not been. That doesn't mean
that does not feel like
that doesn't mean it's too expensive. Yeah, it's
yeah.
just like, yeah, for a guy who's being again the highest target share in the entire NFL. Yeah, sign me up, and been very very good. Yeah, I think 7,500 is too cheap. 8,300 on FanDuel also fair, maybe even a little bit cheap. All right, Bengals at Browns. Bengals implied team total 23.5. That's tied for 12th of the week. Browns implied team total 18. That is tied for 26th on the week. Of course, Amari Cooper gone from the Browns. So theoretically, we should be able to find some value here. I wrote up more Browns players than I probably needed to, just because of Amari Cooper's gone and they've got this great matchup. So the combo of those things, I'm like, I feel like you can find some GPP goodness here potentially, but maybe this is a too cute thing that I'm doing with playing some Browns. I'm curious to hear your take on Browns players if there's anybody that you like, but then also obviously the Bengals.
I mean, I think Njoku's definitely in play.
Yeah,
4,100. That feels pretty nice. When looking at the Browns, the thing that jumps out is like when you have a quarterback playing as bad as Deshaun Watson, then you hide that quarterback. You do not let him, drop back a bunch. You do not have high pass rates unless you're Kevin Stefanski, because he is out there like actually running like an offense that doesn't seem to know how bad Deshaun Watson is playing, and Watson is able to rack up this ridiculous amount of negative EPA week after week. And to the point that, if you look at like his EPA per game, he's below guys like Tyler Huntley and Skylar Thompson. He's actually above Rattler, but he's like below quarter, like as bad as he's playing, like, yeah, you'd rather have him than those guys, but it's, no one in the right mind would like put those guys back there at high volume. And yet we are actually seeing the Browns do this at fairly high volume with Watson still, but that's okay for us, right? Like we could actually get some value here now, maybe that Amari Cooper's gone. Amari Cooper had a 19% first read target rate, which is like fairly significant. That is, there's going to be plays that are designed for someone else as the first read now. That's not Amari Cooper. David Njoku has a 21% targets per out run. He's already got a 16% first read target rate, which is pretty good, but you could see that increase here. He's got an 8 out of 3. So this is more of a DraftKings take here. We are counting on the PPR, counting on that. But yeah, I mean, he's a tight end one for redraft. He's, a pretty decent play here. And then the most interesting piece of this game to me is Jamar Chase, who I don't know that people are going to be super excited to play at 8,400 against the Browns. The Browns do have a really good pass rush. And you look at like what the Bengals have been doing on quick throws this season, and it's actually favoring T. Higgins. 36% targets per out run on quick throws, which I expect to be a big part of the game plan against the pass rush. With Jamar Chase just 23%, so 36 to 23% in favor of T. Higgins. That's not great, but Chase led 30% to 20% last year and was a lot more efficient with 2.27 yards per out run, and Higgins was at 1.64. And the big difference between the two this year, in my mind is that teams are doubling Jamar Chase this year at an absurd 42% rate. Last year, he was at 24%.
Wow.
T. Higgins last year was at 26%, which is hot. The other thing is that 26% was 96th percentile,
For a wide
which just
receiver,
shows you, just shows you like that 42% rate is just like not going to sustain. Like that
no.
defenses are not going to play Jamar Chase like this all year. T. Higgins is at 22%. He's been doubled a bit, but Chase is just like literally 20% higher than T. Higgins. The Browns don't double. The Browns have faced CeeDee Lamb. They doubled him 17% of the time. They faced Malik Neighbors. They doubled him 22% of the time. They faced Brian Thomas 23%. They faced Brock Bowers 19%. They faced A.J. Brown 27%. That's the highest a wide receiver has seen all season. But that would be like, the best matchup that Chase has seen in a while. Like that'd be awesome. And he's been really good when against double coverage. The Ravens double covered him a bunch, and he went off in that game. So it's not like he's getting totally shut down, but it would just be a nice break. And I think give the Bengals the ability to kind of get back to Chase is the option on these quicker throws, which is really well suited for this matchup. So my feeling on this matchup is that we start to see the Chase Higgins split look more like last year than it has this year. And my thinking is that the field will, at this point, now that we're in week 7, start to really be buying into, Chase and Higgins being a bit closer in terms of the projected targets and all of that than it was last year. So I'm basically kind of, because of the matchup, reverting to the prior a little bit, that Chase is going to see more of the targets than Higgins, at least as far as the numbers would suggest to this point.
I'm glad to hear you say that, because I wrote up Chase, and as I was writing, I was like, man, should I really be writing up Jamar Chase instead of T. Higgins, even though T. Higgins is much cheaper and has a higher target share and all that? But it was like the projection on Chase is still significantly better. I still think he's the much better receiver. Things are going to revert at some point. So yeah, that seems like this should be a game if he is not going to be double covered. I like that analysis on why this could be bullish for Chase. What about Chase Brown? So finally outsnapped Zach Moss last week. I don't know to what extent. It seemed like it was because of the fumble, because Zach Moss fumbled in an important situation. I don't know, though, if that, do you think that carries over this week where Chase Brown continues to be the lead back, or is that just like we're sitting you today because of the fumble and it'll be back to being the Zach Moss show?
Sacrilegious mentioned on the pod I did with him this morning on the Legendary Upside feed that he felt that Moss, that the Brown stuff had kind of preceded the fumble to an extent, and felt like that Moss was getting a little bit more of the work, or that Brown was getting a little bit more work. I am definitely intrigued by Chase Brown here because of just how efficient he's been and the explosiveness. And he's running back 2 with a 51% success rate, so it's been consistent. But then you also get this player who, as everyone has noted on Twitter, has been shot out of a cannon when the ball's in his hands. The Browns have a good defensive line, but beyond that, right, this applies to both the pass and the run. Beyond that, they're beatable. They're 5th in run stop win rate, but they're only 19th in EP allowed per rush and 19th in rushing success rate against. So there's definitely the potential for Chase Brown to have a nice game here. If I was making the bull case for him, I'd note that the Browns are a run funnel. Teams are averaging a 57% pass rate against them, with a -4% pass rate over expected and a 3% shift to the run. The problem is that that's not how the Bengals do things. Like the Bengals, they have a 66% pass rate and a 6% pass rate over expected, which is tied for the league high. And they are generally generally passing in game script where they could run a bunch. So like, for example, against the Chiefs, they had a 57% expected pass rate. They passed 68% of the time. Against the Ravens in that back and forth game that they should have won, they had a 57% expected pass rate, passed 66% of the time. Last week, 57% pass rate, passed 67% of the time. So even, in spots where you would expect them to run, they tend to pass. And I do like this passing matchup for them. So I tend to lean toward the passing game, but, I could be wrong about that. I think Chase Brown is definitely intriguing.
Yeah, I think he's intriguing, not like a slam dunk play for him, but somebody that I included in my MME plays. So like, 150 set, I would take some shots on Chase Brown, not necessarily if I'm playing like 20 lineups. You mentioned David Njoku. Yeah, just I think the David Njoku is just like he's only 4,100 on DraftKings. Could be the primary pass catcher now with Amari Cooper gone. A lot to like there with David Njoku. I also wrote up as like tournament MME plays Jerry Jeudy and Elijah Moore. I thought about I was debating between Elijah Moore and who's the other one on the Browns?
Cedric Tillman.
Cedric Tillman, I thought about because I was like, well, maybe he steps up and has more of that role with the Amari Cooper gone, because it's been Elijah Moore mostly in the slot, so not really playing the same role. I don't know. It's kind of a mess, but it just feels like they're all pretty cheap for, everybody should take a step up in terms of where they are in the route tree. I don't know. Is there anybody else that you like on the Browns? You think they're playable at least with Jerry Jeudy 4,800, Elijah Moore 3,200, and then Cedric Tillman is 3,000. I struggled with this one.
I think Moore is probably playable. If you look at like almost any of the numbers, they're all horrible.
Yeah, not good.
But the one bright spot is that he is in the 82nd percentile in open score. So, maybe if he moves up the target pecking order a little bit, maybe that works out because he's actually getting open somewhat. Jerry Jeudy is in the 25th percentile there. I expect that Jeudy will be the big beneficiary compared to Moore of Amari Cooper leaving, but there's at least some upside with the idea of like this guy's been kind of quietly running routes well, at least according to that metric.
Yep.
And I would have a hard time going down from him to Tillman because you're saving $200, and Tillman, hasn't been able to get on the field very much and hasn't been able to earn targets when he has been out there.
Yeah, no, I think that's probably right. Mostly just to like Tillman plays, more of the Amari Cooper role, where it's just been Elijah Moore has mostly been in the slot.
That's true.
I thought maybe he steps into that role a little bit more, but yeah, I don't know. Feels a little bit thin. It's just because they're playing the Bengals. It's like, man, if they're playing the Bengals, they're all pretty cheap. They're all priced as though Amari Cooper is there. So it feels like there should be somebody that I really like. And honestly, there's nobody that stands out as like, oh yeah, this is an awesome play. But they're all getting such low ownership that I think in a milli maker type setting, at the very least, I think you could throw in Elijah Moore and Jerry Jeudy and just hope that they are, target monsters here. And of course, hope that Deshaun Watson gets benched in the first quarter and Jameis Winston goes out there is what you're really hoping for. Best case scenario.
Give us Jameis.
Yeah, give us Jameis, please. Anything else from this game?
No, that's it for me.
Nick Chubb returning, but I don't think he's going to be a full-time player just yet. So not going there. I do want to just say, seeing a lot of questions for season long in chat. We don't really do that on this show just because it's a DFS show and it's also a podcast. So just save those for the shows that are talking about season long stuff. There are plenty of those here at 444. And also, if any of you are in chat and seen questions for other people, feel free to answer other people's questions because it can be fun talking about this stuff. But since this is a DFS focus show, we don't really have time to go over season long questions. So apologies. Houston Texans at Green Bay Packers. The Texans have an implied team total of 22.5. That is 18th of the week. The Packers 25. That's tied for the 6th best on the week. Pretty interesting game to me. Two pretty good offenses here. I called out several players in my article. Anybody that you like here, Pat?
I like the Texans passing game here, but I don't. It's like, why does Stroud have to be 7,100? Can we protest that? That's just it's right. Like I think
he's always too expensive.
He's too expensive. Yeah. So it's probably like. I'm interested in both Dell and Diggs. I like Diggs a lot more in terms of like what I expect him to do out on the field, but he's 7,700 on DraftKings and Dell is 6,500, and that's obviously a big difference. But yeah, I think this is kind of an intriguing matchup. The Packers are 11th in EPA allowed per play, but they're only 30th in dropback success rate against, and they have a weak pass rush. The Texans are 30th in time to pressure allowed. They are 25th in pressure rate. So they're not protecting CJ Stroud all that well. A weak pass rush is a really nice setup for him. Now, the Packers have been good at defending the deep middle of the field, which is kind of Stroud's whole deal. But I still think that this is a pretty good setup in terms of him to be able to drop back, unhurried a little bit more than usual and deliver downfield. So Diggs and Dell jump out to me as pretty decent plays. And then Schultz, Dalton Schultz, I mean, he's actually been getting targets. He's got a 15% target share, 16% targets per route run. Those are decent numbers, especially the target share for a tight end. The issue is he has a 4.6 yards per target, which is atrocious. But it's so low that like you basically it can't sustain. Like he's got to eventually be a little bit better. And so that 0.72 yards per route run that he has, I think, understates his role in the offense. I have that per this expected yards per route run number. I have is being more like 1.23. Like he should be fine. And so I do think he's in play at 4,200 as well.
Yeah, and I mentioned that I don't really lean too much into the schedule adjusted stuff for tight ends this early in the year. But if you want to look at that, it's another bonus for Dalton Schultz. The Packers giving up the 30th best at stopping tight ends. I never know how to say this with schedule adjusted stuff, but they're ranked 30th in terms of schedule adjusted, which means that it is the third best matchup for tight ends here for Dalton Schultz based on schedule adjusted stuff so far this year. So just one more little bonus there for Dalton Schultz with the usage, with the matchup. All of that looks pretty good to me. I do want to give a shout out to Chicago Cubs All-Star Justin Steele in chat, also a moderator on my channel. Unfortunately, I could not make him a moderator on the 444 channel, but hope you're having fun in Mississippi? I forget where you're from. I know you traveled home, but hope you're having fun there. Tank Dell, I wrote up leading the Texans over the past 2 weeks in route participation since Nico Collins left early 2 weeks ago. 80.5% route participation for Tank Dell. Has 13 targets over that span, which not like an amazing number, 13 targets with Tank Dell or with Nico Collins out, but pretty solid there. I kind of like Tank Dell this week. I don't know. I haven't watched a ton of the Texans, and I've heard people say that he doesn't really look as good as he was last year. What's your read on Tank Dell?
I've heard that too. I've heard Matt Harmon talk about that as well. But he's 78th percentile in open score. So, he was elite last year. So, maybe he has lost a little bit of a step, at least for now, coming back from that injury. And yeah, I mean, I definitely prefer, like, Diggs just feels a lot safer to me. But you're getting paid getting paid $1,200 to move down to Dell. And I think I'll probably accept that payment, thinking about it that way, at least in some lineups. And I also would note Joe Mixon, even at 7,200, I think is pretty intriguing. His role is really strong. And while I like the passing game here, I don't know, this didn't like jump out to me as like, oh man, the Texans are set up to smash through the air. But I think they're going to move the ball effectively. And then when you look at the rushing matchup, the Packers, it's kind of a similar dynamic where the top line number is good. They're 6th in EPL per rush, but their 22nd rushing success rate, the 26th in run stop win rate. This is the type of matchup I think that Mixon can kind of consistently pick up like chunk gains. And the Texans have been, not super aggressive this year. They've got a 0% pass rate of expected. They're not like they're even, they're balanced. And I think that's good for Mixon. Like if Mixon's tied to an effective passing game with a balanced game plan in a back and forth game, like he can put up a lot of points.
It sort of feels like games against the Bears we just need to throw out. Like I feel like there's so many like low performance outliers everywhere. Anybody who faces the Bears just like, oh yeah, they're really great except for that one game. And Mixon falls into that bucket of he's been awesome in like every game except for against the Bears on the season, averaging more than 20 PPR fantasy points, just 3 games. But the 2 that were not against the Bears averaged 27 PPR fantasy points per game and then just got shut down by the Bears. Kind of seems like everybody gets shut down by the Bears. So yeah, seems like a pretty solid spot for Mixon. 7,700 for Diggs is a little bit tough. Like I really want to get there, but the price tag is enough that it's not like an amazing play to me.
I agree.
In play, but yeah. Packer side, I mean, feels like a pretty good spot for Jaden Reed, Jordan Love are the 2 that I wrote up. The Texans already not great against the pass, and now they're going to be missing rookie cornerback Kamari Lassiter and safety Jimmy Ward, so kind of a banged up. I think there's some other injuries to the defense as well. What is your level of interest in Jaden Reed, Jordan Love, any other Packers?
Yeah, I think the Jaden Reed bull case is that the Texans pass rush is the strength of their defense, and Reed has been the Packers' most efficient wide receiver under pressure with 2.98 yards per route run. He also has 1.81 yards per route run against the blitz, which leads the team. So I think he's going to be involved, and he has a fairly high floor. Is part of the idea. They're getting the ball out quickly, and a lot of those passes are going to go to Reed. I'll note, even though Tucker Kraft has a really low ADOT, that's not the way he's been used. It's a lot more checkdowns for Tucker Kraft. So I think Reed could benefit. But like you talk about, injuries on the back end, like who's going to really make them pay for that? And I'm intrigued by Christian Watson. I mentioned this pod I did with Sacrilegious. He was really pounding the table for Christian Watson, got me excited about him. It comes down to a little bit Dontavian Wicks' health and what we can project in terms of the routes for Watson. But Watson's been pretty efficient this year in terms of his per route stuff. And so if he's out there running routes and, you are kind of betting on some splash plays, I don't know that the consistent targets are necessarily going to be there, but this is a matchup where, we just saw Drake May last week, twice hit them for long touchdowns. So Watson, that's his game. And it really does come down to Wicks's outlook and how many routes you can project for Watson. But if we feel like we're going to get 85% of the routes for Watson here, I'm definitely intrigued by that.
What is the price tag? Romeo Dobbs
4,900.
40. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. He's one of those, he didn't project well enough that I didn't really feel the need to. I was like, man, I kind of like this spot for the Packers, but the only one who really stood out from a projection standpoint was Jaden Reed. I couldn't sell myself on anybody specifically between Christian Watson, Romeo Dobbs, Dontavian Wicks, but I kind of like that call out at 4,900. The price is right. Maybe Wicks is limited. Who knows if Wicks even plays in this game? So yeah, that's pretty interesting. I had not.
Wicks would probably need to miss for me to like really go there in DFS. But if he misses, I'm definitely intrigued by Watson.
Yeah, I think you've sold me on Watson as being pretty intriguing play. Anything else from this game?
I'm not that into Jacobs at his price tag.
Yeah, tough spot in terms of schedule adjusted. Fifth worst matchup for running backs against the Texans. So I think we're on the same page there. All right, Seahawks at Falcons. Seahawks that have applied team total of 24.5. That's tied for the 9th best on the week. Falcons 27. That is the 2nd best implied team total of the entire week. So a lot of seemingly good fantasy plays to me here. Who do you like in this game, Pat?
This is a fun one on both sides. I think the pricing probably has me favoring Kenneth Walker the most. I think he's not like super expensive, and I think he's probably the strongest running back play of the week. So,
okay,
just like in our rankings, we've got him at RB1. And so like you're getting like $1,000 of discount relative to the other guys. If you agree with me on that take, he's getting involved as a receiver in a big way. He's been super efficient as a rusher, and I like the Seahawks to put up points here against the Falcons defense that doesn't have a pass rush. And that's been the big thing for the Seahawks is, protecting Geno Smith. It's been a little bit of an issue. They're dead last in time to pressure allowed, 19th in pressure. They allow pressure, and when they allow it, it happens very quickly. But the Falcons are dead last in pressure rate and 27th in pass rush win rate. So I'm thinking that the Seahawks move the ball effectively in this game. And then you get Walker involved in that passing attack with a 15% target share, which is running back 5. So it's different usage with this Ryan Grubb offense than it was with Pete Carroll. But then he also gets a Falcons run defense that's 29th in rushing success rate, 24th in EPL out per rush, 28th in run stop win rate. So he gets a great matchup on his own. He's also tied to the passing game that I think will be effective. And he's running really, really well. He's running back 8 in breakaway yards per game. He's running back 6 in elusive rating. The big thing with Walker is he's always been kind of boom bust, but this year he's got a 41% success rate, which is like rock solid. It's running back 19. It's not like anything super special, but like you want him to feel like we can trust this guy to do what we ask him to do. And then also he's going to lead to big plays. He's got touchdown equity. So, he's running back 3 in expected points per game, and he's running back 6 in fantasy points over expected. So he's been very efficient, and he's got a great workload, a robust workload, and I love the matchup. So I don't know. I mean, it just feels like, I know 7,300 is not like really cheap or anything, but it feels pretty cheap for what we're getting.
Especially given his involvement in the passing game. Like, he historically has never been somebody who's targeted a ton. Now he has 24 targets through 4 games. Somebody tweeted out, and I forget who it was. I'd love to give him credit, but that like his most recent game was the most targets he's ever seen in an NFL game, breaking, I believe it was his record. His prior record was the week prior. Like, he's just been targeted a ton over the past few weeks. If they're going to start throwing to Walker more, I mean, that just, man, he's going to be a slam dunk this year. So yeah, I can't really argue against him as being the overall RB1 on this slate. Price is definitely fair. Geno Smith looks like a pretty solid value option at 5,800 on DraftKings. 7,600 on FanDuel doesn't really stand out as a great play, but to me, 5,800 on DraftKings looks pretty good. But I don't totally love any of the pass catchers. DK Metcalf, JSN, Tyler Lockett. Does anybody stand out to you as like your favorite stacking partner if you go to Geno Smith? And do you think you're going to play any Geno Smith?
I think Smith's definitely playable. Lockett I like more than like I thought I would, but I don't know that I'm excited to play him at 5,300. The thinking with Lockett is that this defense, the Falcons defense, doesn't double a ton, and they also, I like the Seahawks' ability to attack downfield a little bit more with the lack of the pass rush, which suits Lockett better. And also, Lockett's been doubled like a lot more than Jackson Smith and Jigba, probably because of the type of routes he's running, and so that could work out for him. But DK Metcalf is my favorite, even at 6,800. I think he's probably my favorite way to play the Seattle passing game. When I started, I was kind of like, I really wanted to start with Drake London in this game and tout him as the fun way to play it. But it looks like he's going to be pretty chalky.
He is.
So, yeah. That keeps me like a little in check on that. But of all the receivers in this game, I still think, Drake London is by far the easiest to get excited about. Sets up his potential kind of alpha game for him.
Yeah, Drake London looks really, really strong. 54 targets on the year. Again, second highest implied team total on the entire week for the Falcons. So hard to argue with the number one target earner in Drake London. Kirk Cousins, I think, also looked pretty strong as a value, 6,300 on DraftKings. The Falcons are 6th in neutral pass rate. So he looks pretty strong. Kyle Pitts, I thought about writing him up as a target play. I only wrote him up as an MMEA just because I can't get myself to do it anymore. I've been burned too many times with Kyle Pitts. But in terms of schedule adjusted stuff, the Seahawks have given up the 31st most, or I guess the second most schedule adjusted fantasy points to tight ends this year. So it's a great spot for Kyle Pitts, at least as far as schedule adjusted stuff.
What I would note there is that the Seahawks are very weak in the splash zone, 10 plus yards and over the middle. They're dead last in splash zone EPA allowed per drop back. And that's generally going to be a spot where tight ends feast. But Kyle Pitts, kind of shockingly, has a second percentile splash zone target rate. And you're actually seeing a lot of those splash zone targets go to Ray McLeod. He's 96th percentile for wide receivers. And then you're also seeing them go to Drake London, who's in the 90th percentile. So that's part of the reason I like London so much this week, is that I think maybe like what you're pointing out there, tight ends feasting against them, is to some extent like the middle of the field is a vulnerable spot. And London is the way to play that, I think. Or Ray McLeod, but that's probably more like as a spot start. I'm not going to play him on DraftKings at 4,400, but just thinking about like where those targets might go, I think it's probably like London and McLeod before Pitts. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we finally get some deep seam targets to Kyle Pitts and our best ball bags come roaring back to life. But but I actually think London may benefit more from that dynamic than Pitts.
Interesting. Yeah, I like that analysis. Just taking a deeper look at it. A lot to like about London here. So you say you're not playing. I thought about writing out McLeod just because he gets targeted so much and he's just 4,400, and it's obviously a great matchup. Should be a high paced matchup, but didn't end up
You're right.
writing
He
it
is
up.
playable.
I think he's
Yeah.
But
I don't know.
again,
Something
I didn't
about
write
it.
him
He
up
just
either.
feels so
The
unfun.
upside
Like, he's
doesn't feel
very
there.
playable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
actually, I used to have this conversation. I've had this conversation several times with Scott about, because he hates Wandale Robinson. It feels kind of the same to me, of just like a PPR scam type player. But I'm like, I've always been the one to argue, like, well, he can get there. Like, he just scores a touchdown along with all those receptions. You're going to want him at 4,400.
Plus,
But
like his ADOT's 8.1, which is like shallow, but it's not like 4.
yeah,
You
right.
know?
True.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, he's playable, I think.
Yeah, I
Darnell
agree.
Mooney seems pretty good to me. 90.4% route participation, 43 targets. But you think that maybe it's not the best matchup for Mooney? How do you feel about Mooney?
No, I think Mooney's fine. Like, he doesn't jump out as, being like he's targeted some in the splash zone, but that's not like what is making his season. But yeah, I mean, he's 23% target share, 1.73 yards per route run, and I like the Falcons to put up points and to be effective through the air. So, Mooney could easily have a good game here.
And I guess Bijan, the other one. I mean, he's only 7,100, 82 carries on the year, 22 targets, just really involved. I had concerns last week about the injury with Bijan, maybe limited him. And of course, Tyler Rozier did have a big game, but so did Bijan, had a pretty big game also.
Yeah.
Obviously not the same matchup this week facing the Seahawks as Carolina. Carolina just the best possible, but not a bad spot here either. So how do you feel about Bijan?
I mean, for DFS, it's a lot, so I'm not. He is very playable, but I don't know that he's going to be a big part of what I do this week.
Okay. I think that's reasonable. I wrote him up as a target, but it was kind of a borderline between target versus MME play. Just he projected well enough that I was like, I feel like I should include him as a target. 7,100 doesn't seem like price prohibitive, but I still, do you have any concerns about the hamstring? Like I do still have like some concerns about, the way they used him 2 weeks ago. Even though he did go off, what were, I want to look up his actual box score from last week, because like
He
he
scored
got
2
there.
touchdowns, but it wasn't
Yeah.
like this incredible game. Yeah, I mean, he definitely got there as far as the fantasy points, but I played him last week, and it didn't fill me with confidence.
No, me neither.
He's running back 22 in expected points per game this year. He's running back 22 in fantasy points per game. He's got a good role in the passing game, but a 12% target share is like not this like incredible locked in. He's good as a receiver, but it's not like strong enough to where you're going to overlook not a ton of usage around the goal line so far this year, and not very good rushing efficiency. He's running back 22 in rush yards over expected per game, running back 23 in breakaway yards per game. He's been consistent. He's running back 13 with a 43% success rate, but the explosiveness hasn't been awesome, and the role has been like an RB2. So that's where I guess I'm starting to feel like until the price drops, or unless the price drops, I'm going to just like struggle to maybe be as bullish as market. Because I'm starting to feel like maybe we're just over projecting Bijan a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, even last week, he definitely got there because of the 2 touchdowns, but that is only 15 rushing attempts, only 4 targets. Like that's solid usage, but I kind of wonder if it is sort of capped, like if they are trying to keep him in check because he's been dealing with an injury. Of course, now it's another week removed, so
And
maybe
Algiers been
not.
good.
But yeah, they seem to really like Tyler Rozier. He was great again last week. So yeah, it does feel like it's a little bit capped. So I get it. The matchup is good enough that I think definitely in play, and I think we're on the same page there. At 7,100, to me, it was borderline between target versus MME play, but kind of splitting hairs with the way I'm writing it up there. Looks okay.
Yeah.
Anybody
No,
else?
I think he's.
Yeah.
It's more just like my personal prep, but like he's very, very playable, and it seems like
Yeah.
people will play him as well. So
Right. Yeah, he's going to get some ownership.
yeah,
Oh no, Juwan Jennings this week. I didn't realize that Juwan Jennings was even questionable. I was not writing him up. He's kind of fallen to the wayside anyway, at least for me. But
yeah.
Anyway, Dolphins at Colts. Dolphins implied team total of 20.25. That's tied for 20th best of the week. Colts 23.25, tied for the 14th best of the week. Getting Anthony Richardson back for this one for the Colts. I don't know. This is a tough spot. Hard to get excited about anybody on the Dolphins right now with Tua out. I really struggled with this one. Like I thought about like, but should I write up Tyreek Hill anyway? Because he's down to 7,300 and they're playing against the Colts. So like the spot seems so good that for a player who just has the ability to make some splash plays, feels like it's possible, but the projection is so bad. The point per dollar projection is so bad for Tyreek Hill. I did not end up writing him up. I don't know. How do you feel about the Dolphins in this matchup with the Colts without Tua?
I kind of had a similar thing with Tyreek Hill where I was like, like this, this is pretty good.
Right.
Now, are we going to get anything from it? And it's kind of like, I kind of fell on like my final conclusion was sort of like, he's still Tyreek Hill,
Right. I think that's a good conclusion.
Yeah. Now he's 7,300 and I probably don't play him this week in DFS, but it's more like weekly games and stuff. I'm kind of like, he's still Tyreek Hill. So, as far as the plays I am intrigued by, I mean, I guess it sort of depends on Trey Sermon's health, but at 5,500, I think he's, just like give me the volume. I guess it's kind of the question of if we can count on that though, which I'm not sure about yet.
Tyler Goodson might eat into that this week. Sermon has just been not very good. Yeah, it's tough. I wrote up Devin Achane as a potential play.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on him? He's kind of tricky to me for me to get a good read on.
Me too. I mean, so he was knocked out. Pun not intended there. Early in their last game that he played. So like we really don't have a ton of sample size for Achane without Tua here. I think that he's just good enough that he's playable in large field GPPs in a great matchup. The Colts giving up the 24th or 24th in stopping schedule adjusted fantasy points to running backs. They are a strong matchup for Devin Achane. He's only 6,700. Theoretically, when Tua first went down, we thought like maybe they just rely more on the running game, and that would be Achane would benefit quite a bit. So probably loses some juice in the passing game, but maybe they do finally just lean on him more in this game. And he's just good enough that I think he could have some breakout runs at 6,700. I don't know, against the Colts because of the matchup. I think that it's playable in large field GPPs, but again, didn't write him up as a target, just as a 150 set. Yeah, I probably have some interest there.
Yeah, and the Colts are kind of a run funnel, and I was like, oh, I know why they're a run funnel in my stuff. It's because they played Malik Willis, and they had a 27% pass rate against the Colts that week. The Packers did, and they were at minus 29% pass rate over expected. But the highest pass rate they've faced all season is 68% by the Bears. They've faced pass rates over expected of minus 4%, minus 2%, minus 9%, 1%, and minus 9%. Other than that Packers game. So teams are attacking them on the ground. They do seem to agree that this is a beatable Colts run defense. And obviously the Dolphins are going to attack on the ground here. Like that's not up for debate. So the thing for me with Achane is that the efficiency has been like shockingly bad.
I know.
Like it's crazy. I mean, he is as bad this year as he was as good last year.
Right.
Like, it's like that level of like, oh my God. He's minus 16 rush yards over expected per game. He's dead last, I think, we're dead last in rush yards over expected per attempt. He's got a 28% success rate, which is horrendous. He's not breaking any tackles. He's got an elusive rating of 31, which is running back 50. He's okay as a receiver for sure. He's actually really efficient and got a nice receiving role, but how many times are they going to throw the ball?
Right. Yeah, so it's a tough spot. Yeah, it's hard to predict. To me, Achane and Tyreek Hill actually feel pretty similar in that way, where it's just like I think that they're good enough to just break off a splash play or two, and just like pay it off in a major way because they're, the prices come down and because of the matchup. But also wouldn't be that shocking if they have 4 fantasy points. Like, just like at the end of the day, they just couldn't move the ball. It's the same Tyler Huntley offense that they've just been really bad. So it's a tough, but to me in large field GPPs, because of the kind of wide range of outcomes, I think, and the low ownership on both, I think both Achane and Tyreek Hill are playable. Waddle projects so poorly that I didn't even think about writing him up, but he sort of fits that same bucket, in just like he's super speedy. We know he's capable of those splash plays, but I don't think I'm going there. But I think at least Achane and Hill in a 150 set are players to include in some small capacity.
I agree. Yeah.
The Colts, you brought up Trey Sermon. I've seen. I said Tyler Goodwin. Tyler Goodson, I believe, is also. You could make the argument that they want to go there. I don't really think that's the case. I don't think I'm going to anybody except for maybe a little bit of Trey Sermon on the Colts. You kind of see it the same way.
I do, yeah. So he's good to go for week 7 is the last report I'm seeing.
Yep.
So I did want to ask you just about where you're at on Josh Downs, because he's been so good. And he's been like not just good, which I mean he's been awesome. 2.25 yards per route run, 34% targets per route run. He's got 29% target share this year. He's running enough routes. Like he's got a really strong role, but it's all with Flacco, right? Yeah. And he's got a 5.1 ADOT. That's like not the type of dude we're excited about with Anthony Richardson. Like this is the part of the field that he struggles to throw to, is the shallow part of the field. At the same time, he has a 26% first read target rate, which is 98th percentile. This has not been like him clicking with Flacco, as like Flacco just, the Pittman can't get open and he's just peppering downs. Like, no. The offense has been designed to run through downs with Flacco. Now, that probably changes because of Anthony Richardson's play style, but like,
right.
Downs has been awesome. And they recognize that, like very clearly they recognize that. So I don't know. I'm like wrestling with the idea of like, is there a way for Downs to like, are we overthinking this basically of like, hey, this second-year wide receiver who was like sneaky good as a rookie is like now very clearly the number 1 wide receiver in terms of what this team has been doing over the past like 3 weeks or whatever. And he was just the wide receiver 1 again. Like that. Is that so complicated just because they changed quarterbacks? I don't know. Probably doesn't happen, but they could.
Yeah. I started writing up Josh Downs and ended up deleting it. I obviously had the same wrestling that you did with Josh Downs, where just like, man, so over the past 3 weeks, 9, 12, and 9 targets with Joe Flacco. So it was like, if Anthony Richardson was out, I was definitely going to have a lot of interest in Josh Downs.
I think we all would. That's Think of like, would at 5,700, if Flacco was out, or sorry, if Flacco was starting, like wouldn't he be like just big time chalk?
Yeah, I mean, you have to imagine with the amount that he's been targeted over the past few weeks. The hard part is, in terms like wide receivers, it's the 4th worst matchup in terms of schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed with the Dolphins. So the Dolphins have just done a really good job of stopping the passing game, allowing, it's been very much a run funnel defense. So just factoring in like the defensive struggle with Anthony Richardson coming back was enough for me to not write him up. But I agree with your point that like we might be just overlooking a really, really good receiver who's only 5,700, who the team has finally recognized is their best receiver. I would love it in a Joe Flacco spot. It's probably playable. He probably should have made my MME list.
I think he's playable. I don't know if I'll play him. I have a lot of Downs in best ball and stuff. So if he smashes with Richardson, I'll be happy.
You're covered. You've got your back
covered. Yeah. But it is, I don't know, in MME stuff where you're kind of going like, we all know this, but what if we don't? That's Yep.
No, same page that it's worth the conversation. I doubt I end up there, but also like, it might look foolish. Would not be the most shocking thing. So that's a good call out. I think that's enough on that game. Another interesting one, Las Vegas Raiders at Los Angeles Rams. The Raiders have an implied team total of 18, tied for 26th best on the week. The Rams have an implied team total of 25, which is tied for the 6th best on the week. Despite the low implied team total, I do have interest in Brock Bowers and Trey Tucker. Any interest for you in those two or anybody else on the Raiders?
Yeah, I think, let's see. Bowers, I definitely think is interesting. I mean, he's going to rack up targets here. It'd probably be his popularity potentially on the slate, which would have me a little nervous. But just as a pure play, Bowers is really strong. I think he's the strongest tight end play of the week, leaving salary aside. And yeah, I mean, there was a stat that I saw a stat floating around on Twitter today that O'Connell hasn't scrambled like ever, or at least for like a really. I think maybe he's the only guy that scrambled this season or something. I forget what it was, but he doesn't scramble. So all the dropbacks are going to turn into attempts, which is nice, obviously for Bowers, who we're counting on to rack up catches.
We just got a super chat, so I do feel obligated, even when we say we're not going to do any season-long stuff. If somebody sends money to the channel, even though Pat and I are not going to see this money, I feel like we need to respond to this. So we'll answer. Leo,
the royal us,
the royal, we are receiving money. Leo the Leak says Amari and Ingram for Taylor and Juju. I'm weak at running back. Yes, I think.
If you're Amari and Ingram for Taylor and Juju. Yeah, I would go ahead and do that, I think.
Yeah, and I'm not even like that high on Juju, but yeah, Jonathan Taylor, I think that's
it's to get Taylor. It's to get Taylor.
He does have Amari Cooper, who just went to the Bills, and maybe like he is that box. We don't know what he's going to be with the Bills, which is kind of exciting. So that makes it a little bit tough. But if you're weak at running back, yeah, I think so.
Yeah, there's also with Amari Cooper, there's like this thing of like, yeah, I know he's just been like real bad in all the numbers and like wasn't getting open.
But he
like,
won't be now.
Because Deshaun Watson, he'll be good. I'm like, what if he's not? What if he's
we are making some
now?
Assumptions. Yeah, I like that call.
So, I think, and you're also getting the post 10 target game for Ingram. So,
I was just looking up. Yeah, so Jacoby Myers is doubtful for this game. I was trying to remember what the exact status was. So Brock Bowers obviously looks good, but Trey Tucker, I think it was already looked good to me before Jacoby Myers was doubtful. Second on the Raiders in route participation over the past 3 weeks with Devontae Adams out, and third in targets, 87.2% route participation, 13 targets. He's only 4,200, gets a smash matchup, or at least a good matchup here with the Rams. So I have interest in Trey Tucker too. Sounds like you do you have any interest there?
No, I am. Yeah, I think he's definitely interesting if Myers doesn't go. I would note with Bowers, as good as he's been, and he's been really good. He's got 27% targets per hour run, which is 97th percentile among tight ends. His first read target rate this season has been good, not great. And so with something like Myers going out, and obviously Adams is gone, like what else are they going to do? I think Michael Mayer's on IR too. I think like
is he on IR? He was like dealing with personal issues.
He's dealing with he's dealing with a personal thing. Maybe he's not on IR, but I think he's out. Anyway, they just don't really have other options. Like you gotta, and that is not how they've necessarily played it to date. He's on the NFI list, not IR.
Okay,
Michael Mayer. So like you could see like if he gets up into like the 22-23% targets per out run or first read target rate, which is where you see like elite wide receiver ones, like that just kind of like locks in what we're going to be all projecting. So I think his floor is actually probably like even higher than it might feel like.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean Bowers is not catching anyone off guard if Myers is out, but I mean he is a very strong play.
Yeah, no, I agreed. Yeah, Brock Bowers very, very strong tight end target. Trey Tucker, an interesting one. Anybody else pop up with? I didn't even think about Jacoby Myers being out when I wrote up Trey Tucker. I don't think that anybody else becomes like a huge priority. I'm just trying to think if there's any other Raiders who maybe pop onto the radar here. No, I don't. Not to me. I don't even know who these guys are. so maybe they would if I knew who DJ Turner. I think it's Christian Wilkerson, I think is the name. Alex Bachman, the Tyreek McAllister, a lot of names in the Raiders wide receivers that I have never seen before in my life. So
yeah, it looks like
I'm not going to give any analysis.
Bachman at 47 or 46% of the routes last week. DJ Turner was at 66%, playing mostly out of the slot. Myers hasn't been out of the slot actually like that much recently, so I don't know. I don't really have any else, but I guess it looks like Turner and Bachman are. Oh, Wilkerson though was at 41% route participation last
So Turner
week.
led, I guess, at least in route participation.
Turner led those three, but he had 89% of his snaps from the slot in week 5 with 76% route participation. So he just looks like their new slot. And then Myers and Tucker have been outside. So I guess like Bachman and Wilkerson maybe split the outside role that Myers is opening up, and DJ Turner's in the slot, I guess.
So maybe late swap options if you need really off the wall play with your last spot in your roster. You could really swap onto one of these guys. But otherwise,
those last place DFS lineups get on.
Yeah, exactly. This one, if he scores 50 points, he might min cash. Those type of plays.
Yeah,
these are your guys. The Rams look pretty good to me. Also, it's a little bit tough because Cooper Kupp is questionable. I don't know if you have a read. I looked at multiple projection sources, and some have Cooper Kupp out, some have Cooper Kupp in. I sort of expect him to still be out this week, but I don't have a really strong read on that. If Cooper Kupp is out, then Jordan Whittington, who is apparently he's a good to go at this point, will project really well at 4,800 on DraftKings. Kyron Williams, Colby Parkinson at 3,800 stands out to me. I think some goodness here. Do you like anybody on the Rams?
Kind of like Tutu Atwell if Cooper Kupp is out. Like Atwell's been it really does have to be because he's out, because the commitment from the Rams to Tutu Atwell has not really been there. But he's been really popping in all the stuff, once he's out on the field. He's got 2.58 yards per out run. He's 89th percentile in open score. He's dealt with a lot of double coverage because he's a deep receiver, 14.4 ADOT. So he's 93rd percentile in double coverage rate, but still getting open, still drawing targets. And he's also got a 22% first read target rate, which is 93rd percentile. Like that's what I was saying. I was hoping Bowers gets to, right? Like when he's out on the field, he actually is a part of the game plan. And that's much higher than Jordan Whittington, who's at 14%. Whittington's usage early in the season really wasn't there. But I still think Atwell is the most intriguing Rams receiver as long as I know he's going to run the routes, which means as long as Cooper Kupp is out.
Yeah, I mean, looking at some projection sources, not all that far off from Jordan Whittington and lower ownership. So I don't hate that call of Tutu Atwell being pretty interesting here. Not somebody I wrote up, but maybe somebody I should have considered in a pretty strong matchup.
It's probably one I'll tweak. I would probably tweak him to be slightly above, Whittington. And
yeah.
Personally, yeah.
But that requires Cooper Kupp being out again. Like,
yeah.
Would you play? I assume you wouldn't play either of them if Cooper Kupp is in.
I'm not. No, I'm not, because I don't have a good read on exactly like what. Because to me, like in one way, like Jordan Whittington has been almost like the Kupp Puka replacement. So like that's what you don't need now. So does he lose a lot of routes? On the other hand, Atwell seemed to be like the last guy they were interested in. Like they gave Tyler Johnson run before Tutu Atwell. Like they don't. Right. He might be like kind of like last in first out kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I just don't feel confident about the route. Or you could just have it being split, and Demarcus Robinson's like he's got 92% route participation this year. Like he's just out there running around, but he's out there.
I'll have my vengeance. Yeah.
But you could. I mean, he's out there running routes. Maybe he catches touchdowns, but it just gets too hard to predict if Kupp's in there in terms of who actually runs routes. So I'm not interested in these guys, but I feel confident enough to flip the projections on Tutu versus Whittington if I know they're both running routes.
And if Kupp plays, what would your level of interest be in Cooper Kupp?
Man, I mean, if Kupp plays, what is his price? I don't even.
It also, I should it would matter when he gets ruled in too. I think he's like 8,100 or something. But if Cooper Kupp gets, we learn at 2:30 Eastern that Cooper Kupp is going to play, he's going to be like 1% owned against the Raiders in a great matchup. So I would think like if we get late news that Cooper Kupp is in and you have the ability to late swap onto him, I would think about it pretty strongly, I think.
Well, I mean, we just said, we're playing DJ Turner and I can't remember the Alex Bachman,
Right, yeah.
Christian Wilkerson triples. So you bring Cooper Cup
Just
back.
leave $5,000 on the table so you can make that swap if you need to
Yeah,
on Cooper Cup.
5,000. Yeah, easy game.
7,900 on DraftKings. Yeah.
Yeah. Where are you at on Kyron in this game? Because he's so expensive, and he always projects well because like he scores touchdowns every week. But like
Yeah.
if he doesn't score touchdowns, like his efficiency's been so bad, and he doesn't have that great of a receiving role. He's 9% target share, 0.55 yards per out run. Still has a 32% success rate, which is pretty bad. He's running back 48 in rush yards over expected per game. Like everything about this profile kind of stinks, except he's running back 2 PPR points per game, and he
Right,
projects well
exactly.
every single week.
Yeah, only 15 targets on the year is pretty surprising. Like I think of him as being somebody who is involved in the passing game, but not really so far this year. I think because of the matchup, I still like it. I don't know. It's like he and Saquon to me are like sort of similar, where it's like, man, just a little bit more expensive than I really want them to be. But
Yeah.
also, like, you can't really fade these guys because they clearly could put up 35 fantasy points. I think I like Kyron because of the matchup. Because of the matchup, I'm going to lean towards. Yeah, I'm probably going to have a good amount of Kyron. What is the projected ownership at this point? Um,
Seems moderate.
yeah, like sub 20% we're looking at. Seems fine. I'll probably be. My guess is I come in slightly underweight to the field, but not taking a huge stand there. Do you think you're going to play some?
I don't know. There's some expensive stuff I want to do this week, and he's expensive as well. So I don't know if he's going to fit. I don't think he's a bad play, but he's probably not on my short list.
Colby Parkinson, I would say, is on my short list as far as tight ends. Just the role has been pretty strong. Third on the Rams in route participation, 79.7%, leads the team with 31 targets. Now, that's obviously one of those numbers. It's like, well, yeah, everybody else has missed time, and he's just been playing every game, but he's only 3,800 in an elite matchup. So he does kind of stand out to me. Do you have any interest in Colby Parkinson?
Yeah, I mean, you're getting the routes. We just did K-Dot and Chalk week when he was. It's just like the bull case was game environment and or matchup, and he's going to run the routes.
Yep.
So I think Parkinson is a pretty solid play along those same lines.
I think he's probably the cash game tight end, and playable, but getting some ownership. Like I think looks like around 20%
Do you think
ownership.
I don't? Does the 300 up to Njoku does that make a big difference?
I haven't played around with it, but probably not. Like I would prefer to play Njoku. Just like the upside is clearly much higher for
Yeah,
David Njoku. So yeah, probably not enough of a difference. And I would prefer Njoku, but I think he's still a strong play in this matchup. Parkinson.
yeah, I agree.
Anything else from this game?
Nope.
Alexander Madison, you doing anything with that? Madison, Zamir White, that gross running back room.
White's out, right?
I think I thought I saw White was. Am I wrong? I thought I saw he was questionable at this point, like was practicing maybe. Let me double check that. I think we just questionable. Yeah, just 5 minutes ago.
Another limited. Okay. Questionable. Yeah, not if White's playing, I just really have no interest. Madison has not been good. Like he's been better than White, and I think he just looks better than White, but like in the advanced stuff, he's not good. And White, not that White's been horrible, but White has a 29% success rate, which is RB48. Madison's been worse. He has a 26% success rate.
Oh,
So yeah, he's been better in like rush yards over expected, but he's still running by 36 there. So yeah, I guess looks like Madison's receiving role has been, decently better. He's got 18% targets per out run, 1.38 yards per out run. So that's pretty solid. But in a split role, like if Madison's doing, a degraded version of the Dalvin Cook fill-in role, okay. But if it's him splitting with White, I'm not really into that.
yeah, same page. I didn't end up writing him up. I thought about writing up Madison. Like he projects kind of well enough to at least consider. Rams not a great defense, but couldn't get myself to do it with Alexander Madison. I think it's a pass for me. At least if Zamir White is in. If Zamir White is out, I think somebody you could consider playing. Carolina Panthers at Washington Commanders. This is the game that, like, when I looked at the slate, this one immediately stood out to me as a game that I am probably going to be targeting pretty heavily. I think that is still kind of the plan for me. The Panthers have an implied team total of 21.75. That's just the 19th best on the week, but the Commanders implied team total of 29.75, the best implied team total of the entire week. I think given the volume of some of the Panthers players and just the smash spot for the Commanders, this is going to be a game that I'm attacking quite a bit. Do you feel the same way, Pat?
I do. Yeah. When I was writing this up, I was definitely excited about kind of both sides here, the ability to put up points. And then you come over and looking at the prices, and it's like not prohibitive. Terry McLaurin 6,800, Brian Robinson 6,400, like Jaden Daniels 7,600. Okay, yeah, that's great. I'm into it.
Yep.
Is he like the best quarterback play of the week? That like not. I'm not saying salary wise, but just like if we're ranking the quarterbacks, isn't he like the top guy? Or at least he's
By
in that
far, his
conversation.
projection,
Yeah.
like, I think by far is the best. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. That seems very palatable. Chuba Hubbard is in a really good spot. Xavier Legette is kind of flashing as playable. And then Deontay Johnson should see a lot of volume in this game. Zach Ertz is only 3,900 and he runs a bunch of routes, so I think he's playable. Like there's a lot of, this game is so kind of fantasy rich that the tricky part is like how to play it, not if to play it.
Yeah, I think that is exactly well said there. Yeah, I think you've named all the best plays. I have as targets from the Panthers: Chuba Hubbard, Deontay Johnson. Johnson targeted 43 times in 4 games at Andy Dalton, that quarterback. Chuba Hubbard, just an awesome workload. 86 of 120 running back carries, 23 targets on the season. Looks really strong. Legette, as you pointed out, was injured early in week 5, but in weeks 4 and 6, 14 combined targets on 79.5% route participation. So fair price at 5,100 against this Commander secondary. Looks pretty good. Andy Dalton, has not been like setting the world on fire, but at least 16 fantasy points in 3 of 4 starts this season. Looks okay. You pointed out Jaden Daniels, just he has the best projection of any quarterback on the slate, and he's not really price prohibitive. Seems fair enough. McLaurin looks good. Brian Robinson looks pretty solid to me. 73 of 108 running back carries for the Commanders in his 5 games. Only 10 targets, kind of hurts a little bit there, but just smash matchup with the Panthers defense. Zach Ertz looks okay, second on the Commanders in route participation and targets with 28. I wrote up Noah Brown, saw 8 targets on 57.1% route participation last week. He's been, he joined the team kind of late and kind of steadily has built up his route participation. Didn't really, it was 57%, I think, the week prior last week too, so it didn't continue upward. But to me, Noah Brown, the next most interesting of those pass catchers on the Commanders. He was a borderline write-up for me, but I included him just because the matchup is so good. The only other name that I keep seeing pop up is so I did the cage match show with Jacob Sanderson was a guest this week. He drafted Jalen Coker, and it was he needed a $3,000 player, but he felt good about Jalen Coker as a play. I saw that Bime Forak also wrote him up in his expert survey this week. So some people have some interest in Jalen Coker. To me, it's not really that much better than the those Raiders guys that we talked about who I'd never heard of before. I think it's probably a little bit of a better play, but not a real standout to me. Do you see anything you like in Jalen Coker?
75% route participation last week, but not a ton that I see there. I guess I could see. I mean, I could certainly see it at min. But yeah, I think the Noah Brown one's definitely interesting. The tricky part is that they've not been playing like many of their receivers very many routes.
Right.
So the playing time is definitely going to be hard to project for much more than 63% last week. But it's not like there's not a role for him to like ascend to. It's just splitting between like 3 different dudes behind McLaurin. I think, I mean, the Dalton stuff, Dalton has been pretty bad the last 2 weeks. But he was awesome that first week against the Raiders. And this matchup is easy enough to where you're like, what if we get back there? Is that
right? If he goes back to
So
being pretty good against the Commanders secondary, just like could be a smash. Would feel pretty good.
yeah, and in that case, like Coker, Coker is part of that because I don't want to play that through Dalton. I want to play that through Daniels. Of the Panthers are somewhat competitive, and then
Yep.
Daniels plays a full game. Like yeah, that's Dalton. Just his upside goes right to the other side of the game, but that's where the pieces. I mean, I guess what I'm saying is like kind of bring back pieces, Coker and Leggett, obviously Chuba, Deontay. Like I think all those Panthers are intriguing there.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that is another case for Coker is, you're paying for Jaden Daniels and Terry McLaurin. It gets pretty expensive. Coker really brings down the price of that stack, makes it very workable and strong enough route participation last week. So yeah, I guess certainly playable.
So Brian Robinson got in a limited practice today. And it's that given that he missed last week, I mean, he could miss again. What are your thoughts on him if like we're unsure of his, I mean, we probably are going to be kind of unsure of exactly how healthy he is, even if he plays. And then if he doesn't play, Austin Eckler, 5,900, is he interesting at all to you?
Yeah, I mean, definitely if we get Brian Robinson ruled out, Austin Eckler is going to look really, really good to me against the Panthers. At that point, I would have a ton of interest, especially if we get it like with inactives. Again, an hour and a half before the game, just not nearly enough people would react to that. So that would be absolute smash spot, just like jam in all of the Eckler at zero ownership in that scenario. If we get the news like today or tomorrow that Brian Robinson is out, I still think a really strong play just because the matchup is so good with the Panthers. The price tag is what is Eckler's price tag? I don't think it's, let's see, 5,900. Yeah, that's I like he would project for probably 16 fantasy points. My guess if Brian Robinson is out. So yeah, I think he'll become a smash play if Brian Robinson is ultimately inactive. But especially if it is late, he'll just be a smash play at low ownership. So that's a good call. Eckler would be awesome if Brian Robinson doesn't play. If Brian Robinson does play, it becomes much trickier because Robinson
Mhm.
not really involved in the passing game. Again, just 10 targets on the year. He's 6,400, might be limited. Like they're probably not going to tell us like, oh, we're going to limit him to 25
Right.
snaps. Like they're not going to tell us that ahead of time. So um, I think I would. I don't know. Maybe you still consider playing Eckler. Like if you just think Brian Robinson is limited and Eckler takes on more of the workload, sort of an interesting large field GPP play at even like literally like zero ownership in that case. That's interesting. That's a good call out.
Yeah, that's one I'll be keeping a close eye on because Robinson is, I mean, it's the Panthers. Like you can run all over the Panthers,
We just saw
and the,
Algier and Bijan Robinson just both
yeah,
get there against the
yeah.
Panthers.
So I don't know. I mean, maybe Eckler the Algier play this week?
I think he is. He probably is. Yeah, just like he has more paths to just like having a good workload, and he's probably going to be efficient when he is out there and he's involved in the
Right.
passing game. So even better in that way than Algier, that like you can probably count on some passing game work. Yeah, I like
Hmm.
that call out. A little bit more expensive, so that's the
Yeah,
downside,
yeah,
but
yeah.
still not like crazy expensive. Yeah, no, I like that call out. Um, anything else from this game?
No, I don't have like a super definitive path of the way to play. I mean, Terry McLaurin, obviously, the cleanest, kind of simplest path is like Jaden Daniels, Terry McLaurin, and then Chuba coming back or something like that. But
Yeah,
um that's not, that's going to be popular.
it's going to be popular. Yeah, I
Yeah.
still think I'm probably going to do it like maybe even more than the field does it. Like I think it's going to be popular, but probably not like 30% of the field doing that. It's going to be like 8% of the field has that exact combo.
Yeah.
Like it's still
Yeah.
not going to be like that crazy. And so I'll probably just lean into the chalk there a little bit. Um, all right. Kansas City Chiefs at San Francisco 49ers. We got a Super Bowl repeat here. Chiefs have an implied team total of 23. That's tied for the 16th best on the week. 49ers implied team total of 24.5. That's tied for the 9th best on the week. Juju Smith-Schuster is, I think he's questionable still. I don't know if he was ruled out, but I don't know who this is. It's a tough game for me because obviously if this game goes off, wouldn't really shock anybody, but also like pretty strong defenses. No obvious targets from that standpoint. Well, maybe Kelsey to some extent. I don't know who do you like in this Chiefs Niners game?
Yeah, it looks like Juju's questionable, and Andy Reid said he thinks he'll play. So,
Okay.
yeah, but I like Kelsey a decent amount in this game. Um, I'm kind of skeptical, I guess, of the Juju stuff to an
Yeah,
extent.
me too.
Um, the first read stuff is not. I mean, he's got a 7% first read target rate, which is pretty bad. And he's out there like he's okay. So they lose Rice, and they there was I think with his first touchdown this year, Juju like came in for like one snap for Rice and like did a Rice route and like took it to the house. But then Rice is out and Juju gets put in the Rice role, and that works pretty well. But like they've got this rookie Xavier Worthy. They're coming off the bye. Like, the plan for the rest of the season is just Juju in the Rice role? Like that's
Yeah,
what the Chiefs
right.
are planning? Like I don't know. I think more highly of them than that. I think
Yeah,
they will do some different things. Like Rice is gone. He's not coming back. He's out for the year. So like, you probably should come up with some different play designs that feature not Rice, because Rice is gone.
right.
So I'm of the mind that maybe we get a little bit more Xavier Worthy this week. Not to the point of like, oh, you got to play Xavier Worthy, but where like Kelsey is still, I think, their primary underneath guy. They're kind of those keep the ball moving, keep the chains moving. Target is going to be Kelsey. So I like him. At 6,300. Like he's the clear number one on his own team, and we're all just kind of over it. But he's going to get a lot of targets, and I get it is tough with Bowers, like because you're actually like, it's the same type of play, but what you're paying more, right? What's
Paying
Bowers
more
58?
6,300 for Kelsey, 5,800 for Bauer. So you're paying
58,
more
yeah.
for the old dusty guy instead of
That
the
seems
exciting young guy in the great matchup. Yeah,
that is
that's
not
a tough
fun
side.
at all. That's a super tough sell, but I might be able to
On the
sell
other
myself
hand,
on it.
who's better between Patrick Mahomes and Aiden O'Connell? So I guess that there is that. There's that with
There's
the
that.
Kelsey stuff.
Am
19
I
targets.
allowed to use Patrick Mahomes stats from previous years when I answer that question?
Fair, fair point. 19 targets, 79.5% route participation over the past 2 weeks. Rice injured early 2 weeks ago. So really elite usage, like kind of what you expect with Kelsey. It has kind of gone the way you would expect it to go. We're just like, all right, I guess all of our good receivers are out. So we'll just pepper Travis Kelsey.
Yeah.
So just the role is so solid there. Yeah, I think he is the I believe the highest projected tight end of the slate by kind of a wide margin, like over even Brock Bowers. So maybe that depends where you look at projections. But I think a pretty strong play for Kelsey. Okay, never mind. 4 for 4 has Bowers projected better than Kelsey, so that's makes it a little bit tougher.
That's how I would have it too. Yeah.
I think I probably would also, but enough targets that it's close between the two of them.
Yeah.
What about Kareem Hunt? I mean, he's 41 of 53 running back carries in his 2 games. Only 3 targets in that span, but it's pretty solid usage. 41 targets in 2 games. Any interest in Hunt?
It's 6,000, and it's like it's the dust of Kareem Hunt. Like
I
it's
know, but he looked
if you
good last week. I thought.
yeah, it
Did the
did.
stats not bear that out? But just like watching it, I was like, he looks a lot better than I thought he was.
The stats do bear it out in the sense that he has a 41% success rate, which is like super solid. But he no breakaway runs, and he's -6 rush yards are expected, which is running back 47. So yeah, he's not explosive. There's no explosive left at all. But it's like kind of the Zeke decline. Are we getting? But maybe we're getting last year's Zeke, not this year's Zeke.
Right.
So the thing with the Chiefs, like they are running the ball on first down. That's like they've never done that. But they've had pass rates over expected of -3%, -8%. They had -10% against the Chargers in week 4 on first down. Like that's not how Andy Reid runs his offense, except this year, like I have this chart where I have teams dictating the run, they're overlapping with the Commanders on that chart. Like they're playing from ahead typically, but they're running the ball. Like this is normally they make the Bengals look run heavy. This
Right.
is not the Chiefs we're used to. And so like when I was writing up this game, I was kind of like depressingly intrigued by Kareem Hunt. I think they do use him a lot.
Yeah.
I guess the question would be, does Carson Steele get more run?
But why would he?
Yeah, why would he?
Yeah. So some interest there.
Unfortunately.
Juju, if he plays, so I guess what you already talked about. I'm on the same page as you. It feels a little bit fake to me. Still, just 8 targets over the past 2 weeks on 52.6% route participation. Like he's had some nice plays, but I don't really think he's going to be awesome. So not a ton of interest.
He's going to be very, very chalky if he does play, right? Because he's only 4,000 on DraftKings.
Yeah, I think he'll be pretty chalky.
Yeah, so I'm okay fade. I mean, that's sort of a scary fade given just how cheap he is, but
yeah. What about the Niners side of the game? George Kittle. I mean, we've seen tight ends absolutely smash the Chiefs all year. I got Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, anybody here, and Jordan Mason playing. Anybody you want to play from the Niners?
I think that the safest, most comfy way to play it is Deebo. You've got a Chiefs defense that leads the NFL in double coverage rate, and you've got Brandon Ayuk seeing a ton of double coverage this year, 34%. You've got George Kittle seeing 30% double coverage rate. Deebo gets moved around a bit more, and he's only at 22%. I think you probably you get a little bit of the hybrid role. You get, him moving around the field, maybe not getting doubled as much. So he's, I think, the comfiest way to play it. But I do have some interest just in this passing game generally because of how Purdy is playing. Like normally this offense would be like the version of Purdy that we thought he was last year, or maybe that he just was last year. Going against this Chiefs defense, I'd be pretty concerned. They're limiting first read efficiency very well. And I think will, potentially take away his top options, kind of disrupting what he likes to do. So is he going to be able to button push his way to victory here? Probably not. The thing is that Purdy has a really long 3.17 time to throw. He's allowing pressure. He's doing stuff not on the first read, a lot. Like his, if you look at his percent of attempts that have been first read throws or screens, the only quarterbacks lower than Purdy are Justin Fields and Josh Allen. He's playing kind of hero ball. He's got a 10 ADOT. He's got a 9.1 average depth of completion, which is super deep. His average throws traveling 1 yards past the sticks. He's got an 11% deep pass rate, which is fairly high. 12% splash zone rate. So, still a 49ers style where they're attacking the deep middle of the field. I don't know. I like this maybe isn't the spot to play this angle, but I think it could be, the Chiefs pushing the 49ers. So the angle being that Purdy is a playmaker now.
Yeah.
It's weird, but that's what I'm seeing here.
Yeah, no, it's tough. So who do you want to play with Purdy though? So that's kind of my struggle also is I don't know. Is it Kittle against it's been
I think
kind of a great spot.
Deebo's the most interesting to me. Then Kittle would be second, and then Ayuk would be third of those guys.
Okay.
Yeah. But honestly, I don't feel that's not what I feel strongly about. If I got to a lineup where I was I could do a Purdy thing here, but it's with Ayuk and not I'd be oh, okay, that's cool. It's more I'm intrigued by Purdy in this matchup. I'm just intrigued by Purdy. Maybe not even in this. I'm just intrigued by the way he's playing football. So if you're getting pass attempts in a competitive game environment, then Purdy at 6,400, who has shown a ceiling over the years.
Yeah,
is intriguing to me.
Yep. No, I think that is a strong call out. Anything else from this game?
No.
And then pretty gross game to end. We got the Jets at the Steelers. This is FanDuel only. I know you don't play on FanDuel. The only players that I brought up were Breece Hall 7,600, Devontae Adams 6,900. Both borderline playable, but I sort of feel like this is a game that you don't really need to force in there. It's got a total of 38. The Jets have an implied team total of 20. That's tied for 22nd best of the week. Steelers implied team total of 18. That's tied for the 26th best of the week. Feels like a tough matchup. Probably not going to be a strong like back and forth game. I don't know. Do you see anything that you like here?
No, I don't.
I think that's
I mean,
fair.
you're gonna go to Russ on the Steelers side, and I think if like we felt better about the Jalen Warren usage, maybe he unlocks some of that. If I wasn't so biased against Najee, maybe I would say that he'll catch more passes, and that's intriguing. But yeah, not a ton in this game.
Yeah, I mean, Devontae Adams, you can play the narrative of like maybe Aaron Rodgers just targets him 15 times because he loves him so much, but it's tough against the Steelers, so not something we really need to focus on. All right, well, that was the final game of the slate, so we can just do kind of our general overall like favorite plays on the slate. I guess we can start with who do you think are your favorite stacks for tournaments?
I mean the the Jaden Daniels one is gonna be hard not to play.
Yep.
Right. That's definitely one that jumps out. Stacks. I don't know. No, that is actually a tricky part about this slate for me. Like, not a
Quarterbacks.
ton of stacks jump out. Yeah, quarterbacks. The quarterbacks don't really jump out to me. Like, I like plenty of receivers. I like London a lot. I like Chase a lot. I like Watson. I like Jameson. Tutu Atwell, as I said, if Cooper's out. Like, there's lots of kind of intriguing receiver plays to me, but I don't know that I want to play. I guess Kirk Cousins in London. Maybe that's my favorite stack.
That's a good one.
I'll say that one.
I'd say Darnold and Jefferson also in there. So I think you and I are
That's a good one too.
yeah. So I think we're largely on the same page. Just like Jaden Daniels and Terry McLaurin to me just like stands out. Like yeah, this is an obvious one. You could even go Jaden Daniels with one of the other. You could go with Zach Ertz or Noah Brown. I think would be fine. A fine way to stack up Jaden Daniels. But that one just really stands out as a really strong play. Yeah, I think Jefferson
Darnold is a really good one. I actually do really like that one. Yeah.
Yeah. It'll get some ownership, but I don't think like a crazy amount because you do have to pay up a little bit for it. We also talked about Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown. I think is a strong enough. So a lot of them are fairly expensive. But yeah, Kirk Cousins and Drake London looks really strong. Would you do a single stack there? You think with Cousins and Drake London, or you think you would try to double that one up?
I am definitely comfortable single stacking that, given kind of the way I see it potentially playing out. But I talked about Ray McLeod as not being that interesting, but I would add him to that. I would be very open to adding Ray McLeod as a double there.
And then last week I made it really tough on you. I said favorite play under 5%. Let's roll that back because you seem to think that it was a fun question to try to find a good value play under not value, just a play under contrarian play under 5% ownership. So let's try and find some value plays, or sorry, I keep saying that, some contrarian plays under 5% ownership here again. And let's see, do I have? I'm using a new monitor since I switched over to this new desktop, and it's really tough to I can't see what the columns are on my thing that I'm looking at. So I'm like, I think this is ownership. Yeah, I think I found ownership here. All right, so I can find. Oh, Daniel Jones, Malik Neighbors. That's another one that we both love.
Oh, that's a good one.
And Daniel Jones is, that's obviously a strong stack also.
I like that one a lot. Yeah. And Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown, I think, as we kind of talk through something like that's probably not one that people are really going to end up on.
Right.
So that one's pretty fun. Frankly, AJ Brown is one of those plays.
Yeah.
That, he'll be very low owned, and I think this is a kind of a good spot for him. So he's someone that jumps out to me as a sub 5% play that we haven't talked about yet.
Yep. No, I think AJ Brown, a nice call out. I loved your call out of Austin Eckler, particularly if Brian Robinson is out. But even with Brian Robinson in, I'm kind of sold on it. Projecting for about 1% ownership feels pretty intriguing to me against the Panthers. Dalton Schultz only projected for 5% ownership here at 4 for 4.
That's a good one.
Seems pretty strong. Tank Dell, I've talked about projects for about 5% ownership, so that looks like a strong value play.
Yeah, a couple of the guys I mentioned earlier, Tutu is going to be completely unowned, I think, even if Cup is out. Christian Watson, if Dontavian Wicks is out, I don't know if people get there. And then Jameson Williams, mentioned at the top of the show a bunch,
Yep.
but I think he'll be under 5%.
Yep, I like that. All right, Pat, we did not do a good job of keeping this one short. Without Davis, like this show is going to fly by, but still 11 games. It's hard to get through 11 games. We have a lot to talk about with these games. So we're going to try and get it in under 2 hours. So we have 5 minutes left to get it in under 2 hours. Pat, where can people find your stuff for the rest of the weekend?
LegendaryUpside.com. Got the walkthrough, wrote up all these games that we talked about here. The Sunday night game, Matt Irby covers for Legendary Upside in an article called The Quick Slant. So check that out as well. He also is going to be doing the 2 Monday night games. So we got you covered for all of your needs this weekend. Weekly rankings, rest of season rankings, Stephanie Miller's waiver wire article, which is just absolutely fantastic. Highly recommend checking that out. That's all. LegendaryUpside.com. Just $10 a month, $99 for the year. And the walkthrough has the London game and the Bengals Browns game above the paywall. So if you want to check out, frankly, if you're doing showdown stuff or whatever, you could just go check it out for the London game. Obviously, I'm pretty excited about what we saw from Drake May last week. And
well, now he's hurt. Are you worried about that? Are you concerned about the injury? I mean, we didn't get to talk about Drake May.
Sorry, I couldn't hear what you were saying.
Oh shit! I was saying now Drake May appears to be hurt. Potentially, the latest is there are rumors that he is being like evaluated. I guess maybe I haven't seen the latest on that, but I was going to bring that up as like, yeah, obviously you'd be excited about what we saw from Drake May, and then we get kind of some bad news.
Well, so all right, you gave me another heart attack because I already had this same heart attack.
Okay.
I thought my heart attacks were over. But yes, he had an MRI on Wednesday, but then there were reports that he was like totally fine. And then he was like walking around normally. And then I actually, saw the video. I Googled the videos. He was looking normal in practice. So he says he's good to go. And, I don't know. It's obviously if the guy got an MRI on his knee, that's always pretty concerning, but it sounds like it was very, very precautionary. So
okay, good. Yeah, no,
Paul,
sorry about the heart attack. Yeah,
I know because now you said he was being evaluated. I was like, oh no, it popped up again.
Just this was earlier in the week. Not a game that I've gone back and like read about because it's the one of the games that's not on a slate that I've written about yet. So apologies for the scare, but yeah, good to see.
No, I was
looking strong. Not really reviving Jalen Polk for us, but at least bringing.
I think those bags are dead. Demario Douglas.
Receivers. Top Douglas, looking good.
Yeah, looking good.
Could be a thing. Go check out all of Pat's stuff. I of course have my article out for the game by game breakdown at 4for4, and I update that throughout the weekend to make sure that I am up to date with some of the injury news. We'll also have a cash game article coming out at 4for4. So make sure if you're not already subscribed to 4for4, sign up for that package so you can get access to all of that. If you have not already, please do like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you're listening on a podcast, rate, review, all that good stuff helps out quite a bit. All right. Thank you, Pat. Thank you all for listening, and we'll be back for week 8 next Friday.